welcome our speaker, Dr. Manish Biani from Japan, and next talk is delivered by him. His topic is PEPTA sensors open up new avenues for cancer diagnostic, a case study on cathepsin E for breast cancer. I invite Program Director Dr. Ravindra Samarth on the dais, speaker Dr. Manish Biani. Please come on the dais. And chairperson Professor S.N. Prasad from JK Cancer Institute. Other chairpersons are on the way.
It is our pleasure to have eminent speaker today, Dr. Manish Biani with us. He is from the capital city of Rajasthan, Jaipur, and Dr. Biani was the first from the region as a to secure a prestigious next scholarship from the Japanese Ministry of Science and Technology for 5 years master and doctoral course in Japan. After his double graduation degree in the science in 1993 and in pharmacy in 1997 from University of Rajasthan, Dr. Biani came to Japan and received his master's in engineering in 2001 and PhD in biological sciences from Saitama University. So it is our great pleasure to have an eminent speaker with us for today's session, and Dr. Amod Kumar is chairperson for this session. So I invite Dr. Biani to deliver his lecture for this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, for introducing, and it's an honor and privilege to be part of this important event. I think cancer is one of the very big challenge in India, especially. So how we all can work on this challenge, that I want to brief in this lecture. So before, actually it was not very easy for me to attend this event because yesterday I had a meeting in Tokyo, but somehow I managed the meeting and take the flight, and now somehow managed to make this lecture. But what is important that today especially I am for the young generation, that how the young generation can lead this such a big issue in our country. The mission fight against cancer is something is very, very I think challenging issue, and 1 or 2% cannot solve this. We all have to work together, different discipline, different fields, scientists, engineers, medicals, biologists should work together to find some best way how we can work on this field. So PEPTA sensing, which I'm going to introduce the first time this term, PEPTA sensing. I think this is because already we have been gone the many era of the genomics era, then proteomics, then metabolomics, then transcriptomics. But now I think we are going to touch the peptide era. Peptide can work as a drug also. Peptide can work as a diagnostic marker also. So today I'm going to introduce you the new era that we are going to have in, I think, maybe 1 or 2 decades, the PEP era. We call it PEP era. So because cancer is something, a very big issue that if someone is diagnosed by cancer, it is not so easy. It's very, very, I think, painful and stressful once we diagnose by cancer. So in this field, I think the important part is not the treatment, not the prevention, but I think the early diagnosis. If we could able to detect this disease in early stage, say 0 stage, 1 stage or 2 stage, then I think our prevention can work and further our treatment can work. So I think the most important part in this cancer field is to work on the early diagnosis, and that I am going to highlight here. So before I talk, let me share my journey, how we could able to reach here. So almost half of my age I have spent in Japan. I was almost, some of you like in 20 years back, when I was thinking what to do in the future. I took this decision to to visit Japan, to go there and to learn technology. That is really very important part, especially the biotechnology part. So it was a decision, and I still remember it was 96 September when I came to Professor Kumar to make such proposal and give me a reference letter. So I applied many places in Japan and I got the selection. And the journey started from 96 or 97, that was time. And then I did my master and graduation, PhD, and then journey started. But the thing is important that how I started my journey in Japan, that was very important. We work on the biotechnology, the engineering part. So first I worked as a biophysicist. Then I worked as a biochemist. And after PhD, I worked as a bio-nanotechnologist. And now I'm working with the medical field. So there is a good mixture of all these combinations, that from biophysicist to biochemist to engineering, nanoengineering, and then working on the medical field. That gives a good exposure how we can work together in different disciplines and to solve something new. So this was the journey, and it was in very early that we thought that what relation we can make with Japan is something very important. And I found that Japan is very good in technology. And in India, we have a very good human resource. And what Modi and Abe, the two government, is saying that India can be a factory of world. India can become a factory of world. But we need to merge this technology and human resources. So I think it's very important, because now these two countries are making such a good relationship. I think the most recognized relationship in the world, that India and Japan is growing very well. And now we have a big future together. So if technology part, Techno-Japan can merge with the human resource in India, or especially the diversity that we have in India, the herb medicines diversity or the other diversical seed candidates that we have, if we merge together, I think it can become a very good field in the future. So we are working in India as we are developing the human resources, and in Japan we are working with technologies. So just giving a brief view what we have been done till now. So we started work as a bioanalysis field, and then we worked on the biodynamics to understand the biomolecules, then bioscreening, then biosensor, and now by merging all this field, we are looking to develop some biosolutions for the field applications. So these are the parts that we have developed for bioanalysis. We developed some new tools that can be used to understand the biomolecules, and then biodynamics, how the dynamic behavior involved in the biomolecules. And then we worked on some bioscreening, how we can find new biomolecules as a drug or as a biomarker. And now we are working all this, merging these fields, a very heavy slide. So we're merging all this field to find some solutions. And today I want to convince you that all this merge can work to detect cancer in early stage, in very cheaper way, in very friendly way, in very accessible way, and in very economical way, and everyone can use such tools to detect the cancer in early stage at home. So the things what I said to you, that the problem is the early diagnosis. Early diagnosis is the key issue for the cancer, I think. Because if you see that survival rate, if we detect the cancer in the early stage, we could able to survive more than 81%. But if we detect the cancer in last stage, 3 or 4th, then the survival rate is very less. So what is important, because cancer appears when symptoms are there, but we want to detect cancer when there is no symptoms. So that is our aim, that we are looking for the day when we are able to use this sensing technology at routine purpose to detect whether we are going to have a cancer or not. I'll give you one example, one very big project we are running now. We are working on cervical cancer for ladies. So cervical cancer is still they are not easy, they are not affordable, and sometimes there are some limitation to detect, to go to the doctor and to have a cervical test. So we are planning to develop some sanitary pad that is implanted by some biochips, and these sanitary monthly routine tests can help the suspect whether they are going to have the cervical cancer or not by using the menstrual blood. So these are the concept that we are going to launch in very near future, that using the smart sanitary pad concept, we could be able to detect the cervical cancer at home without going to any doctor or without going to any facilities. So our aim is to detect the cancer in early stage, if possible 0 out of 1 stage. And for that we have developed this PEPTA sensing. So there are two words, bio words and physical words are involved. So first we develop the new biomolecules, and then we bring these biomolecules to the physical world to develop the sensing surface where we integrate both this part and detect the early stage cancer. Okay, so let's talk with the first bio word. So as you know, the life appeared almost 3.5 billion ago, and what we learn from this evolution of life, that molecules are very smart to evolve, and if we can do this evolution in the laboratory, we can generate the new biomolecules. And since the beginning, we are trying to fight against the disease, how we can control the disease, how we can control. And in the early era, the very first drug candidate was discovered by the aspirin. That was in 1899. That was the first drug molecule that we developed for the disease. But you know, this is the for just to control the activity of some disease biomolecules. And then we shifted to a different era that we call the biologics, where we are developing the big molecules, antibodies, to control the disease, but rather changing the safety parameters. But now I think we are going to in different era that I told you. So this is, if you can see the look at difference, in case of small molecules, these small molecules are not good for the affinity purpose or for pathways and for off-target toxicity, although they are good in immunogenicity and tissue penetration and cost of goods. And on the other hand, if you look at the biologics, the big molecules, more than 10 kilodaltons, the affinity is good, the metabolic pathway is good, the toxicity also can be controlled, but other three are not good. So now we are planning to develop another era that we call the peptide era, which is the combination of this both. Not very small, not very big, almost 2 kilodalton of size, and they all can have this good feature. So they can be a good seed candidate for the future as a drug. But how we came to know this the peptide can work together? So in early stage, this is one of the earlier work we have done. So if you look at here in this movie, that this is a small single molecule of DNA. So these small molecules are so flexible and so dynamic. They can change their structures in a picosecond time interval. And this is the very early experiment of us, that we study the small oligonucleotides, around 12 bases, which have different substitution, base substitutions. But even this small substitution, one base substitution, can be used to see the dynamics behavior during the electrophoresis. So that we first found in 2005, that such dynamics behavior can be seen in these small molecules, just a single base difference. And then we predict this phenomena, that although we assume that DNA has the B helix structure, A helix or Z helix, but there are some different type of DNA structures that can be exist in the surrounding. So what we predict here, although these are the double strand DNA, although they are very small in size, but they have exist. But if we look at this position type bonding, which is not very stable structures, but they are very dynamic. They change their structures very rapidly, but they do exist in the system. And if they do exist in the system, they must have some significant role to show the dynamics behavior. And we found that these structures are really very big in number, but they have some roles. And later on, we find that using this FRET, fluorescence resonance energy transfer technology, that if we change this is the ssDNA. If we change the length of this part, you can see the behavior here. The FRET efficiency is increasing as we increase the length of this single strand DNA. So what we predict in 2005, we could able to convince by the experimental demonstration that yes, these small DNA molecules have really some flexible nature and dynamic behavior that is really have some functional role in our body. So another experiment, if you look at this here, very small changes, this is the poly T, then G, C, A, small basis changes, they have such dynamic behavior. And even if you look at here, that even just a very small change in the concentration of buffer composition, from 9 to 36 millimolar, they have a different behavior in that electrophoresis. And also they are very susceptible with the temperature. At 20 degrees centigrade, they have more flexibility, more dynamic behavior. So that show that confirm that these structures are really very unique, have very dynamic behavior that can be used for future. So now, how to find the biomolecules? Although we understand they have some dynamic behavior, but how to find some biomolecules that can work as a seed candidate for future? So then we work on the directed evolutions. So if you look at this picture here, so directed evolutionary things: mutation, screening, and reproduction. And nature exists these three steps in millions of years, and we evolved. Species are evolved. So diverse species are evolved. So we can use the same phenomenon in the laboratory. We can do this evolution that can be completed in hours, in days, not in the years. So what we are trying to use this technology, directed evolution in the laboratory, to find the new biomolecules. So look at here. What we try to capture a single molecule in the cells, and then we make the mutation of this candidate. And then we find, this is the example of polymerase enzyme that work to amplify the DNA copies. So we make the mutations, we make the billions of copies of the DNA molecules in this screening. And then by using that evolution, we could able to find different subtypes or different genotypes of the enzyme candidates that can work. Some can be, they can have significant role depending on their nature of selection, at what force we are evolved these molecules. So this tool, directed evolution, can be used to find a new biomolecules. And you can understand that how worth this technology. Francis Arnold was awarded by the Millennium Technology Prize for this directed evolution method. I think this is the more bigger than the Nobel Prize. So this field is really very potential for the future. So now, using this directed evolution, we understand the flexibility, dynamics behavior, then we use the directed evolution, and using this now we are trying to develop aptamer molecules. Maybe some of you know that aptamers are the small molecules that have a very specific specificity to bind a particular target. So these can be like small DNA molecules that make a unique structure, and then this structure can bind to a particular target. And now these aptamers can be used not only for diagnosis, but can be for detection, therapy, and for other commercial purposes. And if you look at the history, more than I think 12,000 publications already has published on the DNA RNA aptamers. And out of this, it is very surprising fact that 15% of the publication was the patent file. So that shows how the potential worth of this DNA aptamer or RNA aptamer have for the future. So now the thing is that how we find aptamers. So these are the another video where you can understand. We have billions of copies of DNA molecules, and then we incubate all these molecules with the target. So all the molecules bind with the target, and then by using some methods, we remove the unbounded molecules. So by billions of molecules, we found some 100 or 1,000 molecules, and then we induce the selection system, and then further we evolve the molecules by doing this screening process. So by doing this, we can do the directed evolution in the laboratory. But actually there are many things that going in parallel. That is a selectivity issue, that we need to find a molecule that is very, very selective to the target. So here we develop this another tool that we call HIT technology. So can you see that this is a small peptide and these are the target enzyme or some any disease molecules. So what we're trying to incubate this small peptide with this protein and try to find where it finds that good, because there are so many binding pockets. There are so many binding pockets in this protein structures. So we need to find which peptide, which will bind at which place. And once it binds, then we can look at the function of these molecules. So by using this approach, we can find the new molecules that have a specific binding affinity for a target. So by making such round of selections, we can do the data regulation. And this is the technology that was developed first in the world by Professor Husseini, who developed this mRNA display. By this technology, we can make a covalent linkage between the genotypes and phenotypes. Usually what happens in cell, when we express a DNA or RNA, protein will be generated. But this protein has not connected with the DNA RNA. So we cannot connect the functional information or genetic information. But if we develop this technology, by this technology we can make a covalent linkage between the genotype and phenotype, so we can read which sequence making which function. And by using this combination, we can develop the new. And at the same time, the Suzostek, they was the Nobel Prize winner in 2009. So they worked on this, and I was very fortunate enough to work with them and to develop this technology. So we developed this mRNA display that we call. This is the first breakthrough we got in 1997, and we developed the cDNA display. And by developing some linker molecules, we could able to get this covalent linkage. And the second technology that we developed that we call the microintaglio printing, because when we are talking about the billions of molecules, we need a platform where we can attach all the molecules and can see the function of each molecule one by one. So I think this was the first time we reported 25 mega high density protein microarray. So in this we have incubated one copy of DNA on the beads, and we captured this one bead in microchamber by using soft lithography, and then we express the genotypes in this microchamber. And if the proteins are expressed with a particular function, it can be captured on the same position. So we can make a linkage between the genotype and phenotype. We know the function, then we can know which sequence is coming from which functions. So by this technology, we could able to develop 25 mega high density DNA and protein microarray, and that we are using for this screening purposes. So these are the one image of high density microarray, biomicroarray, and we could able to also make this RNA pattern around few micrometer of size. So this technology can be used to print the biomolecules. And then another technical breakthrough which came by Dr. electrospray. Because now we are working cell-like environment. Cell are few micrometer size. So we need to develop a cell-like environment, some cell-like droplet structure where we can incubate all these biomolecules in the droplet and we can do the screening. So we develop this droplet display. You can see here, this is the electrospray. We have a nozzle, we incubate, we insert the biomolecules in the nozzle, and we put this nozzle in the oil. So when we put the electrospray, all the biomolecules will flow through, come out from the nozzle, and we make the droplet in the oil chamber. And we can have a tiny droplet, few micrometer of droplet, where we incubate all these biomolecules. So this was recently developed, and using this, we could able to deal all these millions of library. And we could able to get good droplets by this method. And important thing is that usually when we do the expression in the test tube or in the cell, it takes hours. But we found that if we do the expression in these micro droplets, the protein function can be seen in just seconds, in just minutes. So if you control if you can control the expression in the droplet in a definite in a required size of the droplets, you can evolve more fastly, more rapidly the function of molecules. So that was something very interesting we found recently. So by using this, we developed the droplet display technology, and by this making a selection round, we can do the selection in a couple of hours, not days, not weeks, just hours. So all by combining this technology, we could able to detect all these peptides. These are the small peptides. These are the targets. One of the targets is our cathepsin E. Cathepsin is a good biomarker for many cancers. So cathepsin E, and then we work on the A-beta-42, amyloid beta, which is the Alzheimer's disease biomarker, and renin is the cardiovascular biomarker, and NM23 and SOD1 is also neurodegenerative disease biomarker. And we could able to get peptides aptamer for all this disease, and you can see the binding is so specific and so tight that we can use these molecules to detect these biomarkers in our blood. So these are the candidates that we have selected out from this. Cathepsin E, these are the KDs around picomolar. It's very hard to find the aptamer which have so high affinity, but we could able to detect the specific bioprobes for all this disease biomarker. Okay, so these were about the bio world, how we work on the bio world. So now, what we done with physical world, we are developing a sensing surface where we can bring all these biomolecules and we can incubate them. So this is one of the big projects that we are going, Hokuriku Life Science Cluster projects. And the purpose of this project to develop a simple, rapid, affordable, and ultra early new biosensor that can detect the disease in early stage by using these bioprobes. And this is the outline that what we are trying to develop a small system, that portable system that can be kept at home, and this system is connected with your mobile or with your tablets, and then we have a small chip here, and all these chips have the different probes that we selected, bioprobes. And what we need to just put a drop of blood, and if there are some disease biomarker which is representing some cancer, can be detected at home without going any facilities. So by using, we are trying to develop a portable biosensor that can detect the cancer in early stage at home. So how we are doing? So for these two fields we are developing. One is the nanosensor, because we need to amplify the signals, because the disease biomarker in early stage are very small amount. We cannot detect with our current technology. So we need to amplify the signal so we can detect the signals in early stage. So by using this, we are developing the nanosensor, and we are also developing the MEMS device. So it can be used to automated sample processing. We don't need highly instrument. So MEMS can be used to insert, to flow the blood in your chamber. So we are using the electrochemistry, 3 electrode chemistry, where we have 3 electrode, and this, when we put the potential, these 3 electrode can use to generate the current, and even a small signal of current can be detected by this system. So this is another product that we developed that we call the DEP chip, disposable electrochemical printed biosurface, and these can print it on a paper. So it's a very cost-effective approach. So using these small chips, we can detect the biomarkers on these chips. And how we are doing on these chips, we are just first capture the antigen by 2 antibodies, and this antibody is labeled with gold nanocolloids, and these gold nanocolloids can be detected by this electrochemical sensor. And we could able to detect this CRP. CRP is a C-reactive protein, which is a biomarker for inflammation. When we got some disease, we got the internal inflammation, and this inflammation can be detected by CRP. So we could able to detect the CRP at the nanogram level, picogram to nanogram level. And then this is the MEMS device, that how we use this device to make the automatic sampling of the blood in this chip. So this is the pump, that we use. So by just making the mechanical pressure, this pump can use to flow our solution and blood in the chip. So here you can see that these are the drying, and when we set the blood slowly goes down to this capillary, and then by using the osmotic pressure flow, this blood can come to the second chamber, and then without of any instrument we can use this device to flow the blood in the chip. So by merging this MEMS device, we could able to detect to detect the biomarker in the blood. And here are some results that you can see. In serum we could able to detect in microgram level for this case. Okay, so this is another breakthrough that we are developing to increase the sensitivity of that we call the FET device. FET is the field effect transistor that we use a single wall carbon nanotubes. So we put this single wall carbon nanotube on this FET device, and that can detect the signals at the nanogram level, picogram levels. So by using all this technical evolution, now what we are trying, that we have worked on bio world and physical world, and now we integrated these two fields, and now we are trying to work on the field applications, that how we can detect cancer, and that I'm going to now show you. So cathepsin E is the recently known biomarker for breast cancer. So actually we are a group of persons where we have engineers, where we have a biologist, where we have a medical doctors, where we have a technologist. We all are working together. So our medical groups they discovered recently that cathepsin E is a very, very good biomarker for breast cancer. So what happened when a person has a suspect of breast cancer? The activity of cathepsin E has decreased. So if you can detect the activity of cathepsin E in your blood, the suspect can be estimated the level of the infection in the breast cancer. So there are so many variants of cathepsin H, L, K, S, and all these have the role in the prognosis of the breast cancer. So these are the cathepsin E biomarker, around 48 kilodalton. These are the protein molecules that have the cathepsin function. It is a proteinase that degrades the protein actually. So these we recently found in this paper that in the blood, if the activity of cathepsin E has decreased, means the person is going to have a problem of breast cancer. So here you can see the Dr. Yamashita, Dr. Yamashita and other doctor, they found that in these mice, when the cathepsin E activity has decreased, the tumor was increased. And then they checked in the clinical samples in the human beings. And what we found that in the non-breast cancer, the activity was good enough. But in the different stage of cancer, 1 to 3, and stage 4, you will see the activity was decreased. So if by somehow we can detect the activity of cathepsin E, we can predict the possibility of breast cancer. And for this cathepsin E, we already found this peptide that have very high significant binding with this cathepsin E. And the KD was quite enough, 0.95 molar, nanomolar. And then we bring this peptide on this our physical surface that we call the single wall carbon nanotube field effect transistor. And these are the carbon nanotubes, and we put this peptide on this carbon nanotube, and we make this device, which is a very small device, just a coin, very small device. I must be having my bag, I can show you if you want. It's a very small device that can be used to check the cathepsin E activity. And here you can see the result that by using this device, we could able to detect cathepsin E 100 picogram per ml. It's very, very sensitive, because now the current technology that we have can detect the cathepsin E level is around microgram, not nanogram level. But our sensor can detect in picogram level. That means, because when the cancer starts, the amount of biomarker is very, very small. So if your device can able to detect such picogram level of biomarker, then I think it's a very early stage diagnosis. So we claim that this device could able to detect this 100 picogram amount of cathepsin activity. And we have checked further this by the atomic force microscopy that before and after adding the blood from the patients, we could able to detect this height increase because there was a probe peptide, and when the blood flow, and if there is cathepsin E, it bind to the peptide, and we could able to detect the signals here. So in PBS and in serum also, we could able to check the required amount of cathepsin E. So that show that if you merge this bio and physical world, and if you can control the device, this device can be used to detect the cancer in early stages. And if you could able to do, I think then we can best cure or best control this problem of cancer. So how I can summarize that, if by using all this technological breakthrough in bio world and physical world, we are challenging to use this device and to work as a peptide sensing, not only for breast cancer, but we are also working on the cervical, and it can be used for other cancers. So what we need, the physical world and bio world, and integrate and look at how it can be used for the diagnosis purposes. Okay, so that was the work which we were doing with the Japanese collaborators, and what I said that technology part is very good enough, but in India we have a good human resource. So if we can use all this young generation, if we can generate a good researcher, I think we can better work in future. But also we have developed a company, BioSolutions, because we need to go for field applications. The research should not be kept in the laboratory. It should be utilized by the people. So now we need to work with the company also, that how our research can be transformed in the society, so that it can be converted into the product, and product can be immediately used by society. So now we are working with this company, and this company are now going to commercialize the product of these biosensors. And I am very sure that maybe in next few years we will be able to use this sensor in our at home for early diagnosis of cancers. So with this last slide, especially for all the students, because what I learned in Japan is very important for me to share with all of you. So what you observe is not enough. What you can imagine, like in this picture, is looking the egg, but he's drawing something. What can be created? What can be invented by this the source which we have currently. So imagination is very important, and vision is very important. And I broadly say that these two criteria are very important, that all the young minds or young students should have this ability, join new environment willingly, and hold the courage to change something. If you have these two spirit, I think you can become you can do some good science in the future. So with this, thank you very much, and I'm open.
But by this talk we can understand how this can be translated and can be useful for the society. Because this research, it should not be confined to the laboratory only. It should be, our objective must be to provide the patient care. And you have immensely beautifully this picturized this tool, and how to integrate all these subjects like biophysics, biochemistry and biology. So it is a very wonderful talk here, and I invite our chairperson to give their comments.
And I think early detection of cancer cannot be emphasized. If you detect cancer in early stage, you can treat the case. You can produce complete cure in that case. What happens in developing countries like India is about 70% cases they come in late stages. When they report to the clinic, they are untreatable. Only palliative treatment can be done. But in developing countries, they manage to prevent 1/3 of the cases from becoming pre-cancerous to cancerous. And in 1/3 cases, they detect early. Only 1/3 cases present to the clinics in advanced stage. So you can imagine if peptide sensors, they are put into field very early, they can do a wonderful job, especially in countries like India. So I will request Dr. Biani to collaborate with clinics, collaborate with doctors over here, and I think that will give a big benefit to the masses. Thank you very much.
Finish a good presentation. Here I have a query otherwise. You said that cathepsin E is a good biomarker for breast cancer, and low level of cathepsin E is an indicator of breast cancer. So in other words, whether by increasing the level of cathepsin E we can suppress this breast cancer or not. So this may be a therapeutic approach. It's not only biomarker, and if this may also be looked for.
Because the important thing is the peptide that we found, it can
So Kumar, to felicitate our speaker.